The last one couldn't handle the pressure. You mean she quit? Let's say that. The pause that followed was thin and cold, like the air in this office. I sat straighter in my chair, crossing one leg over the other to look more competent than I felt. Not that he noticed. Lucien Drake, CEO of Drake & Company, didn't look at people. He studied them, like puzzles he'd already solved and just kept around for decoration. I don't scare easily, I said. He finally lifted his gaze. His eyes were pale silver, mercury almost, so clear they looked artificial. The way he looked at me, I might as well have been speaking another language. Or maybe bleeding. That's what the last one said. I smiled, even though my palms were sweating. Good. Then you're used to disappointment. The ghost of something moved across his lips, either a smirk or a muscle twitch. Hard to tell which. Miss Grayson, the older woman who had led me into this marble tomb of an office, made a noise like a suppressed cough. She was standing by the door, arms folded behind her back, and I could feel her watching me, like a loyal old hawk guarding her master, or maybe just making sure I didn't run. Lucien leaned back in his chair. It was enormous, black leather, no visible seams, and yet he made it look small, the way people do when they're too powerful for furniture to contain. You've worked for 3 tech firms, 2 of which no longer exist, he said, glancing down at my resume. Either you're cursed or you thrive in chaos. I adapt, I said. Fast. He looked up again, this time longer. Fast isn't always wise, he said. Sometimes it's how people get hurt, and sometimes it's how people survive, I replied. Miss Grayson shifted behind me but still said nothing. I didn't dare turn around. I wasn't sure why I wanted this job so badly. Maybe it was the title, executive assistant to Lucien Drake. Or maybe it was the salary, which was, frankly, stupid. Double what I'd ever made. Triple if I counted the hush-hush contract bonus clause in the NDA. Or maybe it was just the look in his eyes when he said the last one couldn't handle it, like he was daring me to prove him wrong. Lucien folded my resume precisely in half and placed it beside a silver fountain pen on his desk. You'll start Monday. Miss Grayson will give you the paperwork. That's it? I blinked. Would you like an obstacle course? Blood test? Latin chant? His tone was dry, almost amused. Just checking, I muttered. He leaned forward, just a few inches, but somehow the temperature in the room dropped. One rule, Miss Hart. Callie Hart. Right. I had almost forgotten my own name in here. No touching anything in my office unless I tell you to, he said softly. No files, no drawers, no doors. And if something feels off, leave it. Define off, I said before I could stop myself. His lips curled, just slightly. Not a smile. Not really. You'll know. Miss Grayson handed me a thick manila folder outside the elevator. Her heels clicked neatly on the marble floor. Don't read it here, she said. Sign it at home. No witnesses. Is that legal? Barely. She looked at me over the rim of her glasses. He chose you. That's rare. Don't give him a reason to unchoose. I held the folder against my chest like it might start whispering secrets. Do they usually quit? I asked, lowering my voice. Or disappear? Miss Grayson gave me a long, unreadable look. Then she said perfectly calmly, Just don't get comfortable. The elevator chimed. As the doors closed between us, I caught my own reflection in the mirrored panel. I looked tired, but curious, not scared. Yet, my first morning started at 4:57 a.m., not because I was early, because he was. The calendar on the wall of my new desk flipped over from Thursday to Friday on its own. I swear it did. I stared at it for a full 5 seconds, then shook my head like I was clearing out a dream. The office was quiet. Too quiet. No buzzing chatter, no bad coffee smell. Just the low hum of power, lights that never flickered, screens that never slept. I hadn't seen Lucien Drake since the interview 3 days ago, but his presence clung to the walls like perfume made of tension. By 8 a.m. the other employees started to trickle in. Everyone nodded politely, smiled without teeth, and immediately lowered their voices when walking past his office. No one lingered near his door. No one even looked at it. By 8:07, A sleek envelope appeared on my desk without sound. I hadn't seen anyone approach. Inside was a note, handwritten, I realized, in the same black ink I'd seen on the NDA. Print the quarterly reports. Deliver them before 8:15. Do not touch the pages directly. Below the line was a small silver symbol, almost like a spiral broken in half. I blinked. I reread the note. Then I muttered, sure. Casual instructions for a casual day. There were gloves in the drawer, thin, surgical looking. I didn't remember putting them there. I didn't remember anyone putting them there. I used them anyway. Lucien's office door opened soundlessly when I knocked. The man himself was leaning over a desk cluttered with documents, and something that looked suspiciously like a stone dagger. He didn't look up. You're late. It's 8:14. You're late. I crossed the room with the envelope carefully balanced between my gloved fingers and placed it on the polished glass corner of his desk. I tried not to look at the dagger, or what it was resting on. Anything else? I asked. He didn't answer, just gestured toward a side table. A second note sat there. This one read, update the internal schedule, storage calendar, top shelf. Storage? I asked aloud. But when I turned back, Lucien was gone. I mean that literally. The chair was still warm. The storage room was dim and lined with rows of metal filing cabinets that groaned like old animals when opened. I found the calendar, leather-bound, heavy, and used the gloves again. The pages felt cold. Each one was filled with symbols I didn't recognize. Strange dates, slashes, and names in languages I didn't speak. But I updated it, in pencil, just in case. That night, I went to bed exhausted. And then my phone buzzed at 3:03 a.m. Send me a photo of the calendar, no greeting, no signature, but I knew who it was. I got up, put on a hoodie, drove to the office in dead silence. There was no guard on duty, no lights. But the front door opened for me anyway. Inside the storage room, the calendar was still there. Same shelf, same weight. I snapped the photo and texted it back. A moment later. Thank you, go home. That was it. No apology, no explanation. I stood there for a full minute, holding the phone in the cold dark, and then I laughed, not out of amusement, out of that weird kind of sleep-deprived thrill that hits you when your life starts becoming a bit too interesting. The next day, I walked past Lucien's office just before lunch. The door was slightly open, a deliberate crack, like a trap left baited. I knocked once and leaned in. You ever sleep, Mr. Drake? He didn't turn around. Just kept reading from a thick red folder like it was scripture. Demons don't sleep. I waited for a laugh, a wink, something. Instead, he turned his head just enough for me to see the corner of his mouth twitch, a slow, deliberate curl, like a secret he wasn't going to share, like he wasn't joking at all. It started with a bracelet. Lucien wasn't the type to wear accessories. His suits were custom, razor sharp. His watch, if you could call that obsidian black thing a watch, never ticked. His shirts were always buttoned, sleeves perfectly pressed. But that day, his cuff had slipped back just enough. I saw it when I placed a folder on his desk, a flicker of silver around his wrist, like a tattoo, but metallic. It looked ancient. A broken circle etched into a band, with jagged lines radiating outward like veins. I blinked and it was gone. Is that new? I asked casually. He didn't look up from his papers. What is? Your bracelet. Looks old, like museum old. No, he said smoothly. It's very personal. I didn't push. But I did go back to my desk, lock the screen, and texted exactly one person. Me, Tia. I just saw something. On my boss. Tia, I say Tia curse. Me, maybe. A metal symbol around his wrist. Broken circle. Lines. Tia, picture? Me, couldn't. My life matters. Tia, ugh. But also yes. A moment later, she sent me a voice note, which of course I listened to in the middle of the office with my volume accidentally up. Okay, wait. That's a binding mark. Not basic baby stuff, like Elder Seal level. If it's real metal and not ink, then he's not just wearing it. He's bound. Something ancient. Dangerous. Probably hot. Send location. I muted her before she launched into her demonic dating checklist. Again. Still. Her words stuck with me, bound. Something about that word made the back of my neck prickle. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bracelet, the rules, the late-night texts, the storage room that felt colder than physics allowed. And Lucien himself, too perfect, too quiet, too still. At 2:13 a.m., I stood barefoot in my kitchen, eating cereal and scrolling Tia's TikTok page. Her latest video was titled, 3 Signs Your Boss Might Be Possessed. I watched the whole thing. Twice. Then I put the cereal down, grabbed my phone, and texted her. Me, Tia, be honest. Do you really think he could be something? Tia, girl, that man's not on LinkedIn. He's on the underworld registry. Tia, ask him, for science. Me, seriously? Tia, what's the worst that could happen? The next day, I didn't plan to confront him. But around noon, I passed his office, and he was standing by the window, staring out at the skyline. One hand in his pocket, the other unbuttoning his cuff. The bracelet caught the light again. I stepped into the room before I could overthink it. He didn't turn. Do you ever get bored of the view? I asked. Do you? He replied, still facing the window. I don't have an office like this. Then you should try harder. I rolled my eyes. You know, most CEOs at least pretend to be human. He turned then, slowly. Do I? The room felt colder. I hesitated. Just a second. Then I said it. Are you a demon? He blinked once. No laughter, no denial. And then, if I were, he said softly. Would you run? I held his gaze. I'd wait. Lucien tilted his head slightly. His eyes narrowed. For what? For you to turn into a bat or something. Might be the only way someone in this building flies on schedule. A silence followed. And then, he smiled. Not the polite curl I'd seen before. Not the cold twitch. This one reached his eyes. A slow, deliberate, genuine smile. It knocked the air out of me more than I expected. You're not like the others, he said. I crossed my arms. Because I'm funny? Because you're not afraid, he murmured. Who says I'm not? He walked closer, not threatening, measured, watching me the way a cat watches a laser pointer. Curious, sharp. Are you? He asked. I felt my heart thudding in my chest. But I didn't look away. Not yet. Lucien stopped just shy of touching distance. The air between us felt charged, like a wire waiting to spark. Then don't go looking for things you're not ready to find, Miss Hart. Too late, I whispered. He raised one brow, amused, and then, wordlessly, returned to his desk. The moment passed, but something between us had shifted. I stepped out of the room and exhaled. For the first time in days, I didn't feel like prey. I felt like I had teeth, too. The hallway behind the main archive was dim and silent, the kind of silence that didn't feel accidental. I hadn't meant to be there. Really, I hadn't. I was looking for the IT guy. He'd emailed me about a system sync. I took the wrong stairs, down, not up, and ended up in a corridor I didn't know existed. The walls were darker here, the floor a little too smooth. The lights overhead flickered, once, then held. There was a single door at the end of the hall. Steel. No label, just waiting. I should have walked away. I didn't. The handle was cold against my palm. It turned easily. The room beyond was wrong. That was the only word my brain could manage at first. Wrong in color, wrong in temperature, wrong in something I couldn't name. The lights didn't come from above but from beneath, a dull blue glow that bled through the black floor like water under ice. The air smelled faintly of metal and stone, and something older. There was a raised platform in the center. On it, a stand, and on the stand, a book. It looked ancient, bound in something that might have once been leather, now cracked and too dark to be natural. Symbols crawled over the cover in raised silver, moving faintly as I stared. I stepped closer, heart thudding. A circle of white salt surrounded the platform, perfect and undisturbed. I didn't cross it, not at first, just stood there shivering slightly, my breath hitching in my chest. Then I took one more step. Pain, blinding, sudden, stabbing through the bridge of my nose and into my skull. My ears rang violently, my knees buckled. Warmth slid down my upper lip. I touched it. Blood. Panic bloomed. Fast, sharp, total. I tried to step back, but the floor tilted beneath me, or maybe my legs just stopped responding. My heart was hammering too loud. The salt seemed to glow now. The book throbbed, pulsing like a heart. A hand gripped my arm and yanked me back. The world snapped sideways. I stumbled into something solid. Someone, Lucien. His arms wrapped around me with startling force. His skin was hot, not fever hot, but fire hot, like he'd been standing in an oven. I gasped and instinctively gripped his sleeve. It burned through the fabric. "Let go," I choked. "It hurts." "Don't move," he growled. His voice wasn't calm. It wasn't cold. It was raw. We stood like that for a breathless moment, his chest heaving, mine trembling, until the door slammed shut behind us without being touched. Then the pain dulled, just enough for me to blink. Lucien loosened his grip just barely and looked down at me. His eyes weren't silver now. They were darker, almost black, with slivers of that eerie glow pulsing at the center. "You shouldn't have gone in there," he said, voice low. I swallowed hard. I didn't mean to. I got turned around. I didn't even know that door existed. "You opened it," he said. "That's enough." His hand cupped the back of my head, grounding me. My knees still felt wobbly. I could smell iron, no, blood, from my own nose, and something else, something bitter and electric that clung to his clothes. I looked up at him. "What was that?" He didn't answer right away, just stared at the door like it might open again and devour us both. Then he whispered, more to himself than to me, "She would have torn you apart." I froze. "She?" I echoed. "The book?" He met my eyes, and for the first time since I met him, Lucien Drake looked afraid. "Not the book," he said. "The thing inside it. I felt like I couldn't breathe. She doesn't like new blood, or questions." "Then why keep her here?" I asked, trying not to shake. "Why have something like that locked in the building?" He looked at me like I'd just asked why rain falls or why fire burns. "Because I'm not free to let her go," he said. "And now she's seen you." The silence that followed was thicker than the dark around us. He finally pulled back, letting go fully. The heat faded from his skin, as if he were suppressing whatever force lived just under the surface. I took a breath. It shuddered. He turned toward the stairs. "I'll walk you out." I wanted to say no, that I was fine, but my legs still weren't convinced, so I followed. And as I walked one step behind him, the same thought kept circling my head. I wasn't supposed to find that room, but maybe it had found me. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because it was raining and my coffee had leaked through the bottom of the cup and into my tote bag, soaking a week's worth of printed schedules. And because that was the day I met her. The parking lot behind Drake & Company was always too quiet. No birds, no city noise, just the low hum of underground generators. I was digging for my car keys when I saw her standing at the far end, completely still. A woman in black, long coat, wet hair plastered to her cheeks, no umbrella, no movement, just watching me. I paused, squinting against the rain. "Can I help you?" I called out. She didn't answer, just tilted her head very slightly. Her eyes were wrong, too wide, too dark, like someone had painted over them with ink and forgotten to add light back in. My pulse skipped, and then she spoke. He said I was the last. Her voice was low, almost toneless, like it was being dragged out of her throat by force. I took a step back. "Who?" She didn't move. "He promised," she said again, slower this time, "that there wouldn't be another. But here you are." A gust of wind swept through the lot, sharp as a blade, and for a second, just a second, everything stopped, literally. The wind froze mid-motion. Raindrops hung in the air like suspended glass. My breath misted but didn't move. Time had stopped. I turned. Lucien was there, just there, standing beside me as if he'd stepped out of the silence itself. No sound, no warning. He didn't look at me. His eyes were on her. "I told you not to come here," he said, voice low and commanding, but not angry, not yet. She blinked, slowly, like a puppet whose strings were tangled. "I waited," she whispered. "And you lied." Lucien's jaw tensed. "You shouldn't be this close to her." "She's not special," the woman said, still staring at me. "She'll fall apart too." The air shifted. Not just the mood, the air. It thickened, like gravity had doubled between us. My heart pounded in my ears. The woman opened her mouth like she was about to scream, but instead, she vanished. Not in a flash, not in a puff of smoke. She simply folded into the shadow beside her and disappeared like she'd never been there at all. The rain started again, loud, jarring. Time resumed. Lucien stood still for a beat too long, rain soaking his hair, his shoulders, his hands clenched at his sides. I turned to him, my voice barely audible. "Who was that?" He didn't answer. "Lucien, she used to work here," he said finally. "Before you..." My chest tightened. "She was..." He nodded. "The one before the last..." I didn't know what to say, what to feel. "She's not dead," I said, though it came out like a question. "Then what is she?" Lucien closed his eyes. His jaw flexed again. Wrong. That one word hit harder than I expected. "Did you..." "No," he cut in. "I didn't do that to her. I believed him. And I hated that I did." Lucien ran a hand through his wet hair, fingers trembling, not dramatically, just enough for me to notice. He looked exhausted. I'd never seen him like that before. Not cold, not in control, just tired, and human, and maybe not human at all. "You should go," he said quietly, not looking at me. "Don't stay in the lot after dark. She might..." I hesitated, then reached into my bag and pulled out the emergency umbrella I kept for dramatic exits. I held it out to him. He didn't take it. "Rain doesn't bother me." "Right," I murmured. "Demon thing." He almost smiled. Almost. "I don't know what's going on," I said. "But if I'm involved now, really involved, I need to know how dangerous this gets." Lucien met my eyes, and something in his expression flickered. "Guilt? Grief? Fear?" "I'm trying to keep you out of it," he said softly. "That's the whole point." "But it's too late," I replied. We stood there a moment longer, me with the useless umbrella, him soaked and silent. And for the first time since meeting Lucien Drake, I didn't know whether I was afraid of him or for him. It started with a locked drawer. Technically, I wasn't supposed to open it, but technically, no one had told me not to either. Lucien's office was empty that morning. Something about a meeting off-site. Miss Grayson had told me not to wait. "He'll find you when he's ready," cryptic as always. I was organizing the files when I noticed one drawer that didn't quite sit flush with the others. A thin sliver of light glinted along its edge, just enough to notice. I tugged gently. It didn't budge. But when I pressed a fingertip against the side panel, the drawer slid open with a quiet sigh. No lock, just hidden. Inside were folders. Dozens. All labeled the same way. Assistant, confidential, assistant, terminated, assistant, reclassified. I flipped through them, my pulse quickening. Names, dates, notes in Lucien's handwriting. Every file ended with the same thing. A thick black line drawn through the name. Some were slashed angrily, some meticulously neat. And then I found the most recent one. Alina Moss, the woman in the parking lot. Her file was thinner than the others. No evaluation, no termination form, just a scribbled line that wrapped around itself like a noose. I stared at it too long. "She wasn't the first," said a voice behind me, calm and dry. I turned. Miss Grayson stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching me like I was a spider on her wall. I didn't bother to shut the drawer. "How many were there?" She stepped into the room, not even glancing at the files. "Too many." "And all of them gone?" Miss Grayson looked at me with something unreadable. They thought they could fix him, make him softer, more human, and... they were wrong. I leaned against the desk, still holding Alina's file. "What happened to them?" Her answer was too calm. "They were rewritten." I frowned. "What does that even mean?" She looked at me for a long time, then said, very quietly, "Some became something else. Some forgot who they were. One tried to take his place." I swallowed. "And now? Now?" She offered the faintest shrug. "You're the latest chapter, not the last. Are you asking if you'll survive?" she asked. "Or if he will?" That silenced me. Grayson's gaze softened. "You're sharper than the others. But even sharp things break when pushed too far." Before I could answer, the temperature in the room shifted. Someone had entered. I felt it before I saw her. A perfume, cold, expensive, with something beneath it, ozone and power. She moved like she didn't need to walk, just existed from one spot to another. Sleek black heels, glossy hair, blood-red lipstick. Everything about her screamed curated elegance, too perfect to be real. Celestina. I knew it without introduction. "You must be the new one," she said, voice velvet-wrapped steel. "He has a type, I'm not sure that's a compliment." "Oh, it's not." She walked closer, assessing me like I was a dress on clearance. "You won't last. None of them do, not even you." Her eyes flicked, just briefly, but the smile didn't fade. "I was never one of them, darling," she said smoothly. "I was the deal, the contract, the one who gave him power and took his freedom, I guessed." She didn't deny it, just turned toward Miss Grayson with a lazy glance. "Still collecting strays? Still trying to be relevant?" Miss Grayson replied without blinking. I tried not to smirk. Celestina's smile sharpened. "You think you're different. You're not. He's just bored. You'll become a crack in his armor, and then you'll be gone." She stepped closer, invading my space just enough to whisper, "You're temporary." Her breath smelled like rose petals and smoke. I didn't flinch, but I met her eyes. And in my voice, I kept the fire low, but lit. Good. Fires start with sparks. Her expression froze for half a second. Then she turned and walked away without another word. The sound of her heels faded down the hall. I stood in the silence, the file still in my hand, heart racing. Miss Grayson moved first. She walked past me toward the drawer and slowly, silently pushed it shut. "Whatever you are," she said, not looking at me, "just don't become his reason to burn." The office was empty by 7:42 p.m. The lights in the outer hallway had dimmed to their late evening setting, casting long shadows across the marble floor. The sky outside had turned to smoky blue, streaked with orange. I was gathering my things, ready to call it a day, when Lucien's voice came through my earpiece, calm, low, almost gentle. "Stay. Just a few minutes, not a command. A request," which was somehow more dangerous. I hesitated, long enough for doubt to bloom, then walked toward his office. His door was open. For once. Lucien stood by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. His cuffs were unbuttoned, revealing that same metallic bracelet, the one I now knew wasn't just decoration. He didn't look at me when I stepped inside. "You always stay late?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Only when I have to remind myself what's keeping me here." I frowned. "The view?" His lips twitched, almost a smile. I froze. He turned then, slowly, like the movement itself meant something. There was a weariness in his posture I hadn't seen before, like he was unraveling from the inside but holding the pieces together by sheer will. "I thought you wanted to keep me out of this," I said. "I did, and now?" Lucien walked to his desk. He didn't sit. "There's something you need to understand." He opened the top drawer, pulled out a small black object wrapped in cloth. When he unwrapped it, I saw what looked like a thin blade carved entirely from obsidian, etched with the same symbols I'd seen around the forbidden book. "This," he said, "is what sealed it. The contract," I guessed. He nodded once, signed in blood, bound to her name, her power, her rules, Celestina. "Yes. She offered me a gift. Power, control, immortality even. All she asked for was loyalty, and you said yes." His eyes met mine. I didn't know I'd ever feel anything again. The quiet after that sentence was deafening. I looked at the blade, then at his hands. His fingers were steady. But the way he held the cloth, like it might tear, like he might, said more than his voice ever could. "What did she take from you?" I asked softly. He didn't answer. So I tried again. "What did you give her that you wish you hadn't?" Lucien exhaled slowly, then said, "My name, my past, my soul, if I had one left. But the worst part was knowing I couldn't care about it." And then he stepped forward, just one step, close enough to reach me if he wanted. "You changed that," he said quietly. "You walk in here with fire in your voice and curiosity in your veins. You don't flinch. You don't kneel." "You don't scare me," I said. "Not a challenge." Just truth. He raised a hand, slowly, gently, and touched my wrist. His fingers were warm, not burning, not unnatural, just warm. I sucked in a breath. He noticed and didn't move. "You always burn this hot?" I whispered. "Only when I want to." My pulse was a drumbeat. I felt it, we both felt it, the pull between us, raw and uncertain. But familiar, like recognizing a song you've never heard before. Lucien looked down at where his hand met my skin. "You could ruin me," he said, almost like a confession. "I don't want to ruin anyone," I whispered. "But I don't want to be ruined either." He looked up. Something passed between us, a pause, a choice. And then I stepped back. Not far, just enough. His hand dropped. "I'm not ready," I said, "but I'm not walking away." Lucien didn't argue, didn't try to close the space again. He just nodded once, as if that answer was more than he expected, as if it was enough. When I left the office that night, the elevator doors closed in complete silence, and for the first time since I'd started working there, I didn't feel like prey. I felt like something had changed, not just between us, but inside me. The rain returned that night, not the gentle kind, the kind that swept sideways, angry and electric, painting the windows of Drake and Company in frantic strokes. Lucien stood in front of the sealed door, the one I'd opened once, by mistake, the one that nearly killed me. He didn't turn when I stepped into the room. "I was wondering when you'd bring me here," I said. He didn't answer right away, just stared at the glowing line of salt on the floor. The circle hadn't faded. It pulsed faintly, as if something inside it were breathing. "She's restless," he murmured. "Celestina? No, the thing she left behind, the part of the deal that doesn't sleep." I folded my arms. "So how do we end this?" Lucien's shoulders tensed. "You don't want to ask that." "I do." Now he turned. His face was unreadable, but his voice was soft. "There's one way." He walked to the pedestal at the center of the salt circle. The book was still there, still dark, still heavy, still watching. "I signed the contract in blood," he said. "Tied my name, my essence, my will. I let her make me into something she could control." I stepped closer. "And now? If the contract is destroyed," he said slowly, "I'm free." "Good." Lucien looked at me, really looked. "But the price of breaking it is memory." My heart stumbled. "What do you mean?" "If it's burned by the hand of someone who cares enough to break it," he said, "the contract ends. But so does the tether, to everything, everyone. You'll die?" "No." He shook his head. "Worse. I'll vanish. Like I never existed. You won't remember me. No one will. Not even me." My mouth was dry. "You'll forget yourself?" He nodded once. "That's the fail-safe. The curse." The one thing Celestina feared most wasn't death. It was erasure. So she made sure anyone who broke free would pay by becoming nothing. Silence stretched between us, taut and heavy. Then I asked, "How do you break it?" He looked at my hand. "It has to be you," he said. "You've seen the book. You've touched the circle. You're not marked by her. That makes you the exception." I stepped forward. "No hesitation?" he asked. "I've had plenty, and now?" I looked at him, truly looked, at the man who never slept, who smiled like it hurt, who offered power and pushed people away to protect them. "I won't let you live like this." His jaw clenched. "And if I disappear, I'll know." "You won't," he said harshly. "That's the point. You'll go back to your life. You'll wonder why the office feels emptier, why there's a space in your memory that never fills, and it'll never come back." I took a breath. "But you'll be free." Lucien's expression cracked, just slightly. "You'd do that for me?" he whispered. "No," I said. "I'd do it for you to do it for yourself." He let out a shaky breath. "You're not what I expected. Neither are you." I reached for the book. The salt circle glowed brighter. Lucien stepped back. Just a little. "I'm scared," he said, voice almost broken. I smiled gently. "Then you're more human than you think." I placed my hand on the cover. It was warm, alive. It pulsed under my fingers like a heartbeat made of ink and iron, and as the circle flared, I whispered the only thing I could. "Be free." The walls cracked before the screaming started. It was subtle at first, a hum beneath the lights. The windows trembled in their frames. My computer screen glitched, flickered, then went black. Then the conference room exploded. Glass shards flew across the hallway like shrapnel. The floor rippled. The air twisted. Lucien was already moving. He appeared beside me in the blink of an eye, one arm across my chest, shoving me back as the ceiling tiles fell in burning pieces. "They're here," he said through clenched teeth. "Who?" I already knew. And then I saw them. Celestina stepped through the smoke like it was part of her wardrobe. Perfect hair, perfect lipstick, no dust on her heels. She smiled like this was her birthday party. Beside her, Alina, or what was left of her. The former assistant's skin was pale and stretched, her eyes fully black now, no whites at all. Her smile was wide, unnatural. Her fingers twitched, crackling with energy that looked like static pulled from the air itself. "This is messy," Celestina said, surveying the destruction. "You were always so neat, Lucien." Until she came. "Leave," Lucien growled. "This isn't your ground anymore." "Oh, darling," she purred, "it's always mine. You're just squatting on borrowed freedom." She raised her hand. The floor cracked. Lucien pushed me behind him, but I didn't run. Instead, I sprinted to the room, that room, the one with the book. Behind me, the building roared. Fire tore through the drywall. Alina's voice echoed somewhere, high and gleeful, like a child breaking something on purpose. I shoved the door open. The salt circle was gone. In its place, fire. The book still stood on its pedestal, untouched, waiting. Lucien stumbled in after me, blood at the corner of his mouth, jacket burned at the shoulder. "Callie." "No more circles," I said, stepping toward the flame. "It'll kill you," he shouted. "I didn't stop. It'll kill you if I don't." He tried to move. The fire held him. Literally. It coiled around his feet, glowing, a burning tether that reached toward the book like a leash being pulled back to its master. "You see?" Celestina's voice rang through the room, everywhere and nowhere. "He's mine. You can't break what's already sealed." "You really don't know me," I muttered. I stepped into the flames. They burned, but not my skin, my thoughts, my memories. Every second I'd spent with him sparked in my mind like flashbulbs. His smile, his voice, the cold warmth of his fingers on my wrist. The book pulsed once. My hands bled just from touching it. I didn't care. Lucien's voice cracked behind me. "If I disappear, say thank you." I turned to him, blood sliding down my fingers, face lit by firelight. "No," I said. "If you disappear, I'll burn everything until you come back." I tore the cover open. The symbols screamed, the fire surged, and the contract, thick, bound in blood and bone, ignited in my hands with a sound like shattering glass. Lucien cried out, once, and then the light swallowed him. He didn't fall. He vanished. Just gone. Like he'd never been there at all. The fire died instantly. Silence collapsed in its place. No wind, no whispers, just stillness. I dropped the ash that had once been the book and stared at the space where Lucien had stood. A single scorch mark remained on the floor. A perfect circle. Then, nothing. No Celestina, no Elena, no crackling magic, just me, standing in the hollow echo of something I had destroyed, or maybe something I had saved. 6 days. That's how long it had been since I watched Lucien disappear in fire and silence. Since then, I'd gone back to normal things. Or tried to. I took freelance gigs, answered emails, smiled when people asked about that intense corporate job I'd left. I even started working part-time at a little cafe near my apartment. Nothing dramatic, just warm hands on ceramic mugs, the smell of vanilla syrup, the hiss of the milk steamer. But the quiet followed me everywhere. Not just outside, inside. The worst part wasn't that he was gone, it was that no one remembered him. The company folded. The building listed for sale. His name never existed on paper. Even Miss Grayson was gone. Her number disconnected. Tia remembered that weird assistant job but couldn't recall who I'd worked for. Lucien had warned me. I just hadn't realized how complete the erasure would be. It was like a book being ripped from a shelf. Cleanly, silently, permanently. And yet, there was still a space inside me where he fit. I couldn't explain it, couldn't name it, but it was there. It happened on a Thursday. The air smelled like rain again. I was walking home after a late shift, clutching a paper bag of leftover muffins and trying not to cry at a stupid commercial playing through the cafe window. And then I saw it. A storefront that hadn't been there yesterday. Nestled between a closed nail salon and a dusty florist was a sleek new awning, dark green with gold lettering. Drake and Callie. Consulting. Coffee. Clean starts. I blinked. Hard. The door was glass. Through it I saw wood floors, warm light, a counter with 2 chairs. And him. Lucien. Not in a suit. In a black t-shirt and jeans. Holding 2 mugs. Alive. Smiling. I didn't even remember walking inside. One moment I was outside. The next, I was standing in front of him, breath caught in my throat. "You're real," I whispered. "So are you," he said. "Everyone forgot you." "Almost everyone," he corrected softly. I stared at him. Same eyes, same voice, but something lighter, freer. The edges that once held menace now held peace. "What happened?" I asked. "I broke," he said. "Then rebuilt." He handed me one of the mugs. The aroma hit me immediately, cinnamon and clove. "No blood?" I teased. "Just coffee." I took a sip. It burned my tongue a little. "I didn't care. You kept my name on the sign," I said. He shrugged. Thought it sounded better than Demon and Company. I laughed, too suddenly, too loudly. I didn't care about that either. Lucien leaned against the counter, his eyes soft. "You still willing to work with a demon?" I set the mug down and stepped closer. "No," I said. "Now we're partners." He didn't smile right away. But when he did, it was real, wide, bright. And this time, I didn't step back. Lucien still can't steam milk properly. He insists it's the machine. I insist it's his cursed touch. We've agreed to disagree, mostly because I banned him from touching the espresso wand unless supervised. Drake and Callie is real, cozy, a little chaotic. We consult, we serve coffee, we listen to people who think they're broken and tell them they're not. Miss Grayson runs the schedule like a general. No one knows how she came back. One day she just walked in, handed me a clipboard and said, "You booked a double on Friday, fix it." Tia drops by twice a week. She redesigned our logo and insists on managing our Instagram. Her latest filter? Demon vibes only, complete with glowing eyes and floating runes. She's somehow both our publicist and unofficial exorcist. Lucien doesn't talk much about the contract, or what it cost, but sometimes when he looks at me, I see something he's still learning how to name. Love doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it's him showing up every morning before I do, trying to perfect the latte art I didn't ask for. Sometimes it's me pretending not to notice the scorch marks under the counter when he gets flustered. We're figuring it out, 1 cup at a time. And when I watch him, shoulders relaxed, smiling softly as Grayson scolds him for forgetting the biscotti again, I think, I didn't save him, I just stayed. And maybe that's more powerful, even if his lattes are still terrible.